so on. Sydney, we are without any further ado, handing over to yourself. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. And thank you for, being curious and excited about IACC. As I said earlier, before we even got into it, I have been a part of this from the beginning, back in Houston, Texas, the Woodlands. And so I worked for some of the original conference centers in the States. And I learned at a very, very young age in selling resorts and conference centers and different kinds of venues that the best thing in the world is to sell an experience. And all of you selling the experiential type of venues are more in season today than ever before. And you have the ability to really set yourself apart from everybody else, from every hotel group, from every other kind of big box sort of thing, to be able to show the venue in a different way. Because we know, because I do so many focus groups, that the clients today are actually looking for so much more than space. They want people to leave with memories. They want people to leave with a return on investment. And that's what this is all about. My time with you today, and I'll leave it open for questions, but I am not just another trainer. I have lived and breathed the hospitality industry my entire life. Our clients are all over the world, and I work with some of the best of the best. But my passion with IACC is there are no boundaries, because I can sell a venue, a conference center, an experiential venue, a museum, a yacht harbor. I can way easier than I can sell anything else, because there's so much passion involved in that. Now, when I mentioned earlier about customers and what they're looking for, I sit on so many advisory boards globally. Okay, so we have a team in Asia, we have a team in London, and then our big team here is in the US. But we know that a majority of planners say experiential elements are so much more important to them than anything else they're trying to do in an event. They're seeking unique venues. Now, you ask any hotelier, and they're going to tell you, well, we have a very unique venue. I mean, we have this, we have that. You all have unique venues. And the ability to break out of that and sell differently is what IACC is all about, because the actual storytelling, the actual history, how we put together an event is so much more well thought out than some of the ones we've seen in the past. So whether it's a historical building, a gallery, a restaurant, a museum, the return on the experience is more important than the investment, which we always talked about the investment in the past. They want to make sure they get value for money. Well, in today's world, you can buy almost anything. You can rent almost anything. But when you have people that are trained, and when you have people that know what they're doing, the ability to be able to deliver on that is what sets the tone. So a few little training tips before I go into everything we do. When you think about the unique selling points of selling a high experience type of venue, there automatically is a wow factor. And I mean, just you walk in, oh, wow. But because I work all over the world and I train sales and event managers and catering managers, I get kind of sad when I see them do and here's the meeting room, and here's the room where you'll have your dinner. And they forget that this is brand new to these people looking at this. The history, what was this building before? If it was a factory, it was a railroad station. It is still a museum, and we're open during the day, but we're open at night. Tell us a little bit about that. So the differences in what you sell and how you sell combine both history, and culture. Now, this is important because too many people get hired on the job and they're taught the facts. Square meters, how many times we can do it, when we open, when we close, when in fact, you're all very exclusive. Everything you offer is exclusivity. Now, what IAC does is IAC is that overriding global sales team that is able to put you on the map. So you're not just fighting in that whole kind of same pool. You are up there, just like, you know, historical hotels or leading hotels of the world. They are all independent. They're not part of a brand. They're not part of a name. And they all come together under one umbrella so that they can be represented as an exclusive experience. The other thing is when you think about selling all of your venues, the ability to customize is so much easier than some of your competitors. Now, you might say to me right now, yeah, you don't know, it's not that easy. I do know. I don't care what goes on behind the scenes, all the fighting and the arguing with operations and, well, we can't do that, we're not going to close. To the customer, every email, every proposal, everything we send, our pictures, how we present it, the more we can show that we are supporting the local education, the local culture, all of this is what people buy today. That's what they want. No one wants to go to the same kind of place they could go in any city, in any destination. They want a memorable. When I was here, you won't believe this. Some of my best stories that I tell when I'm on the road come from a venue that might have been 200, 300, 400 years old. And the stories I hear make me remember every single thing about it versus what we actually had for dinner. So I would like to open it up for a moment, and I would like to go around that table and have you just say out loud so we can hear you. Right now, what are some of your unique selling points of your venue? What do you offer that is so unique and different? So maybe we can just have you kind of go around so we can hear that.
Very good, Cindy. You're putting everyone on the spot there. I love that. Well,
Sales.
over to the room. Yeah, let's go. Sales, Clifton's will have to earn the supper. What would anyone from Clifton's want to say anything to answer for Cindy first? Set the tone for the rest of the group. Anybody?
You go.
No, I could go easily. I've got it straight away, but I'm not going
I
to.
think our team sets us apart.
Oh,
We,
You.
no, like they offer, no, apart from me, it's great they are. No, I think the operations team, like they really bend over backwards, they really support, they're really, you know, something else, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so this, all right, so who said this?
Me,
You're probably on camera. Ailish at the front of the room in camera.
And you are with which property?
Clifton's.
Clifton's,
Clifton, okay. So I'm gonna ask you, and thank you for volunteering to go first. So
Yeah.
that means you're part of my little group here. So when you say our team, because I guarantee you, everyone in the world says our team, right? So tell me, describe to me, why is your team different in operations?
so our front of house team, like the, you know, the team that work in the catering, for example, we always get such amazing feedback. They make everybody feel so special. They do such a great job. You know, I just read a comment about them today actually about, you know, they come in, they're smiling in the morning, they're smiling when they go home, no matter how hard of a day they've had. So they really go that extra mile, and it's the same for all of the kind of front of house, back of house teams. So yeah, I think that's really special.
Okay, so that is a marketing tagline right there. You see, these are the things we forget to talk about. And what you all have to do, because you need to remember that this discussion is not just about IAC is so important, but it's also we are constantly educating and training. That comment that you made, and thank you so much, that becomes a selling point. Instead of here's our space, here's what we do, here's the menus, here's this. Let me tell you a little bit about our team. because there's great teams all over the world. But what makes our team? One of the things I picked up, they smile in the morning and they smile when they leave at the end of the day. When I said I fly 10 million miles, I have only been in California, in my home, in my own bed, 19 days this year. So I know the ones that aren't smiling in the morning and they never smile during the day. And by the end of the day, right? We have Encore here. Is that right? AV Encore?
Yeah.
And I do training with Encore here in the States. Love Encore. Bless. Okay. They are under more pressure on property than you can imagine. And I can tell you right now, they have the ability to make or break it in 5 seconds. So today I gave a speech and it wasn't Encore, just so you know, in Huntington Beach. I'm not going to say the hotel because the hotel did good, but the AV company, not Encore, absolutely could have blown it. The good news is because I work in AV so much, I can set up anything, figure it out, make it all happen. He didn't smile when he walked in. He didn't smile in the middle of the day, and he didn't smile when I unplugged my computer and said, "You really need to get another job." So that comment that you made becomes a selling point. Now, with that, I want you to think about the challenges, because I appreciate that unique selling points because there's so many more. And we're going to talk about IAC and how that's going to give you even more unique selling points. But are there challenges you have, anybody? So let's have somebody else speak up in differentiating your venue against everything else that's out there.
And I'm going to jump in for one moment there because I think something I learned from the last 2 events that we did here is just the uniqueness of even things like opening times, times that you can take meetings and events, and times where you can't, because often the meetings and event side of what you do is secondary to your core reason for being. So, in your thinking, think about those barriers and constraints, around your operating conditions as well, because I've heard some fascinating stories around that on just this question.
So any challenges?
Yeah, I would say for us, we're a museum first and foremost, and the events business is secondary. So the biggest challenge for us is trying to turn around what is Australia's oldest museum into an event venue, usually within an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So whether that's a banquet for 270 people, a cocktail party for 1,000, our CEO is quite adamant that it remains open to the public from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that's definitely a big challenge. We do manage to push the boundaries here and there, sneakily.
Imagine,
Yeah, well, you have to. But that's definitely a massive challenge. But it's also, I guess, it's also the unique selling point is that we are its oldest museum.
Yeah.
Yes. And how you position that and how you sell against the competition with that is actually quite good. And one of the things in all of the training that we do, especially with IAC, is that we turn that in, and you said it yourself. It is a selling point. It can be a challenge, but if we can say to clients and we do it in the right way, then it's like a privilege that I get to have an event in the oldest museum in Australia, because nobody can copy that. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
You can copy a room, you can copy a rooftop terrace, you can copy a view of the bridge, or you can copy a view of the water, but you all have very unique situations. What we have to do is make sure everybody that works for us understands how to do this. Some of you have been in this business a very long time and it comes naturally. We have a lot of young people that are joining this industry that don't get it. And that doesn't mean they're not good. They just don't get it, because to them, it's like, what's the big deal? So the more you think about how you train and how you develop your team, that definitely, whoops, I went too quick. That definitely makes all the difference. So some of the frustration, because again, I am on so many advisory boards and we do so many focus groups, and we attend all the IMEXs and all the special events all over the world, even the virtuosos and those sort of things. But clients today are demanding so much more information, but they don't want just the specs. They don't want just like anything they can see on the website. Why do I have to talk to you? Right? So we know AI and all the things coming in. If you just rattle off whatever they can see, kind of, I don't know. They can book online, they can do all these different things. So the details of the proposals today are not what has really been discovered. So let me explain what I mean by that. No one should just be, I'm the oldest museum in Australia. I shouldn't just be flat out sending information before I actually talk to a customer, because we're exclusive. We're very exclusive. Doesn't mean that we're so out of range or out of touch, but I have to ask questions. So it is important that everybody learns to ask better questions so that you can customize every single proposal to the group, so that early on there is no question about who we are, who you are, and how we're going to make this all work. There's too much generic information being sent out. And we get these from the clients because we do so many mystery shops. We're always being asked, can you see how my team's doing? Are they doing a good job? Too many RFPs that are just simply templates, lack of personalization, not connecting. So when you think about the unique selling points, the USPs, and you think about the exclusivity, all of you today sitting in this room have such exclusive properties, such venues, that you certainly don't want to just send out random, because that is not going to build that relationship nor allow you to get the price points that you really need to get. So one of the things IACC has done over all these years, they have really created a well-defined sales process that allows people to learn how to work within a community, because IACC is a community of all the other venues, the experiential venues, the conference centers, the resorts that are part of this incredible community, the cross-selling ability, right? The world's very small. The world's very small. And so many of these clients, whether they're through APAC or EMEA or the Americas, they are asking, where should we go? Well, the better we are at having good information, the better we build a relationship. Our industry a few years ago, and COVID didn't help us, I get that, but we lost the plot, and we kind of lost it before COVID. We got so transactional, so in the moment. Get it out, get it out, get it out. Block the space, block the space. Now, after COVID, when things got crazy and everybody started getting busy and everybody started, oh my gosh, we have so much business, we really lost the plot, because I don't even take that good of notes. I just wait to turn it over to operations and hope they figure it out. Well, that does not end up with a good result. So the way we engage with the client, the way we ask the questions, the way we communicate who we are, what we are part of, how we sell that story. The storytelling is the most important thing in the world. I'm the oldest museum in Australia. That's a story in itself. But if I was saying that to an American, old to them is like 200 years old, right? And old to an American.
We are. That's how old we are.
I know, because you're kind of like us. You're very young.
We're babies.
Those Brits, I know. You're young like us. We think old, but think about it. The history and story behind those 200 years or 250 years, incredible, right?
Yeah, we also have quite a First Nations presence as well, which brings us into the world's oldest culture.
Civilization.
So
Yes,
another selling point.
right. And to have an event and to be able to tell that story, to book it, puts you so beyond everybody else. But that's why objection handling is always last. If you do things right the first time, if you're part of an incredible organization that has unbelievable reputations, objection handling is kind of left to the last. I always say when I do the training, we keep the objections to the end, because if you do it right the first time, you're going to have less objections ever. So let me tell you a little bit about our partnership with IACC. So as I said, again, not to age myself, but I'm not like the oldest museum in Australia. But as a very young salesperson, I was with Burt Cabanas and part of the beginning of IACC, where it all began, where there needed to be an organization that understood anything outside of global sales in big hotels and big boxes and all of this. And IACC became that. And what it did, and under Mark's leadership all these years, is it expanded into these unique venues, the experiential venues. So it wasn't just the conference center world, but the conference center world is completely different than a hotel world. So our partnership really began so many years ago, where we became, I would say, like a fabric, part of the thread, part of the fabric of IACC, where we could help the IACC members because they weren't part of big organizations. So Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental, Marriott, Hilton, all these massive organizations, it gave all of the members of IACC the ability to get the training and the development, and then of course from Mark's side, the marketing and all of that to help really build your individual brands, right? Your individual venues. So we provide classroom training, we provide webinars that are all based on sales skills, and then we have a lot of online e-learning that makes it easier for some of the smaller venues that might only have one or two types of people that want to attend something. So keep in mind, and I said this earlier, we lost the plot. To sell in this industry. So let me go back, and I don't know you all by name, so I'm sorry. If I was standing with you in Sydney, things would be much better, okay? But let me go back to the Clifton, the first person that spoke about the team.
Ailish.
Yes. So how long have you been there at Clifton?
A long time, about 13 years, I'd say.
13 years, okay. Let me go to my museum, my friend with the museum. How long?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years. So you're fairly new there. Where were you
Yes.
before that?
Working in a slightly different industry, so hospitality, restaurants, staffing agencies, nightclubs.
But more unique venues, not like a big box hotel.
No.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to give the
2.5 years, and I came from Sydney Opera House and City Recital Hall.
Okay, Sydney Opera House, again, unique venue. And where else?
City Recital Hall.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Where's that all? So I've got 13 years. And how long were you here now before Sydney Opera House?
Oh, 30 years.
At Sydney Opera House.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 at Sydney Opera House, 30 years there,
Yeah,
correct?
except for the bit in Iowa in the middle, but yeah.
Because then you came to Iowa to be with me. Jeff, when you come back to Iowa, you are my guest for sure. Okay. Well, you're all my guests, no matter where you are, California. So I want to take 30 years. It is in your DNA, is it not? Do you not
Yes.
read it, talk it, love it? Like I've been to the Sydney Opera House probably 10 times. I feel like it's in my DNA, but I mean 30 years, like you live it, you breathe it. You can tell stories that people are like, how do you know that? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Now Clifton's 13 years, same thing.
Hmm.
But now let me go back to the 2 years person.
Natalie.
Yeah.
Okay. You were restaurants and all of that. Now,
Yep.
when you came in before that, because you've been 2 years now at the museum, correct?
Yep.
Who trained you when you came in?
Nobody.
Sink and swim.
Literally sink or swim at
Okay.
that time. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that being part of a community, it allows us to be able to create this bespoke training so that anybody coming in, so we take a 30-year-old veteran that can absolutely give all that information, but we've got to get it down. We've got to get it where people, it's repeatable, it's sustainable, so that when I come in after 2 years, even though I've been in the business, I'm brand new and I sink or swim. So our goal is to help you grow business, because although you all work in such incredible spots, right? We know the competition is there's so much.
Fierce, fierce.
Okay, fear. I love how you say fierce. It's so much better than my fierce sounds like a pit bull. Fierce. Okay. Fierce. It's so fierce because without a doubt, the Sydney Opera House is the Sydney. What, hello? But then somebody's like, well, we were at another opera house somewhere else. We were in London. We did an opera house already. I mean, people, they say this stuff, right? So our job is to create that common and consistent language that shows why we're better, not just because we are a unique venue, but how we deliver. Going back to the Cliftons with our team, with our people. So part of being part of IAC is like being part of a bigger community that helps career path. So when people might leave, because they may be really good, but they've moved somewhere else and they want to, it's not that they're quitting because they don't like it, but they're moving to New Zealand, or they're moving to London, or they're moving to Hong Kong. We have places that are part of IAC where you can stick with the same consistency. And that's what the training does. People come together, they learn the cross-selling. See, when you're only one venue and you're not part of 100, there's not 100 Sydney opera houses, there's one. The cross-selling becomes, I'm in Hong Kong, I have a great client, they're going to Sydney this year. I'm now calling my IAC salesperson I know saying, oh my gosh, they're going to be staying at the Four Seasons, but they're going to do one night off property. I want to give them, I want to do an introduction to you. This is the beauty of that environment. And really, what it does is it not only helps grow people's skill development, but everything is real life scenarios. We have to practice more. And I think what happens is that we tend, and I love it, sink or swim, I think somebody said, if I heard it right. We tend to just kind of make it up ourselves. It's like, I don't even know, so I'm going to go with this. The more, when people say to me, well, I don't like role plays, I don't like that, I will say to them, well, you know what? I get it, but I would rather you practice on us than the client. So the more we practice, the more feedback we get. And when you're a part of a bigger community, it's easier to do that. So our classrooms, we have, one is the IAC difference. When you look at what does International Association of, when you look at IAC, what is the difference? I could be a part of any group of hotels or venues, or part of the tourism bureau, or the venues, or the DMCs. But what really is my difference? Which Mark is going to explain a lot of that to you, right? Then you have to look at, how do you strategically position yourself? In today's world, as we said, the competition is fierce. We have to be proactive instead of reactive. And too many of us are like one person in the sales office, one catering, we have operations, but we're handling all the inquiries, we're handling all the leads. So we talk about, how do you proactively position yourself way before even all those leads come in? Because there's business out there that actually has more revenue for us than the ones that we're just taking from those calls. We also have an event sales solutions workshop that really is for the event team, the catering team, the upselling, the food and beverage, how to do that, how to really understand profitability, Are we making money on this? Are we losing money on this? Are we paying attention to rentals or whatever we might have to do? Also presenting. So today, again, I'm not going to mention, of course, you'll probably all look it up on social media because I'm popular, so you'll know the hotel. Follow me on Instagram, you'll see it. But I felt bad because the director of events got up, lovely, lovely woman, and gave an incredible like presentation on, because there was 60 planners in the room, and I was then the keynote speaker for lunch. Her presentation, and I sat there like, okay, I've got to help you out. I'll help you out later, because the presentation, you have to present to win. You have to give a site tour. You have to do a show around. You can't just walk around. And there's where you'll have your breakfast. This would be where the cocktails will be. I could see this on a website. I've got to bring that emotion. And so that presenting that IAC difference is different than selling it. The presenting is actually in the presentation process. And then leadership. So I feel as though our industry's in for a big crisis in the next 5 years. And not any of you sitting there, but the crisis is leadership. And I'm one of those leaders. I have worked from sun up to sundown. I travel. Yes, I'm married. I raised a daughter. And I'm still married to the same person, by the way, with all the travel, just so you know. I mean, I think that's a positive when you're not home every night. But the idea is that we have warned the younger generation coming in. And I don't know if you're struggling with this like we are in the US. I know they are in London because I've just been there. But this Gen Z, okay, like, well, I need work-life balance, okay? And I have to go, well, we kind of are open on the holidays. You know, we are open on the weekends. So the leadership today it's not about just wrapping our arms around it. We still have to work, we still have to be there, we still have to put in the hours, but it's how you lead today could be a lot different than what we've done in the past. So let me just walk through some of the bullets. So the IAC difference. Number one, all of you have certain business that's the best for you, and you need to know what that is. So when you proactively go out looking for new business development, you are going after the right stuff. You are handling those inquiries. You're handling those objections. And we usually spend a half a day with operations in this workshop to create a seamless turnover process. Because and I think you started out with selling the dream, right? Sell the dream, but we don't want to service the nightmare. We want to sell the dream and keep the dream going. So we definitely get that involvement with operations. Now, those of you that do day meetings and have meetings, the CMP, the complete meeting package, probably the most brilliant thing that was ever created by IAC, right? Because the hotels tried to copy it. They couldn't figure it out. As I said today on my social media, you might have my recipe, but you can't make it because you don't have the sauce, right? So part of the CMP was being able to showcase how that complete meeting package actually helps you on budgeting, helps us at the hotel level or the conference center level or the resort or the unique venue level. So how you're doing that. Now, we customize every single bit of this because a museum is different than a conference center, and we get that. So even if we have a region together and we're in one region, we are doing individual real life case studies so that I'm talking about selling a museum, she's talking about an opera center, and this person over here is selling a conference center that actually has different kinds of space. So that is really what selling that IAC difference is all about. Now, strategic positioning. A marketing plan cannot be written once a year just for owners or board of directors or whoever it might be. It has to be developed so that we can organize the team to develop these key accounts and build that circle of influence. Now, this is where cross-selling comes in. Bringing everybody together, knowing that this is our IAC team, because if my client is not going to be in Sydney and they're going to another city, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's part of this region, I have the ability to build that circle of influence and be able to share my customer with somebody else within IAC. This is like once in a lifetime, because when they aren't, you either are sold out, you don't have space, they're too big, or they're going outside of your city. Are you just going to wipe your hands with the client? Or are you going to say, we're part of IAC? So let me share. I'd like to introduce you to Nicole. She actually has a museum in so-and-so. She's with an opera house in this town. I know you want to do something different when you go, or we're sold out. Let me share with you this. This is how you build that circle of influence. The other big part of this is on negotiating. The customers are vigilantes. They're vigilant. They're vigilantes. You literally give them a price. They're like, yeah, I'm not paying that. Okay. Yeah, I got a better rate. I got a better price. I got a better this. We cannot give it. We can't say no problem. To me, the word no problem means no profit. Every time I hear a salesperson say, oh, that'll be no problem, I'm like, we just lost money. So we have, even if we're non-for-profit, because sometimes we're working in non-for-profit, but we have to have some profit to be able to keep the lights on, right? So the idea is strategically being able to negotiate to get that business. Now, the event, as I mentioned earlier, the event sales solutions is really specifically for those catering, the event, the food and beverage people, conference planners, coordinators. If you do any small groups, we call them EMMs, event meeting managers, things like that. This is so that they can be a part of a bigger picture. Sometimes they are always the one just being thrown the small stuff. Oh, it's only 10 people, you can handle it. Oh, it's only 12 people. And the problem is they need to learn, and they have to be brought right up to speed with anybody, any director of events, director of sales. They need to learn how to get better site visits, how to do better upselling. We leave so much money on the table because we just don't ask those questions. So this allows us to give those people the ability to have the confidence to convert business and make more money at the same time. And then, as I mentioned today, presenting is a big deal. And I know people that are the smartest people I've met, and they can't present, and they don't go as far. And yet, I know some incredible directors of sales and marketing that are phenomenal presenters, but nothing up here, right? They just are the show. They got it. They walk into owner meetings. They walk into exec. They just got it. The best is when you're smart and you can present. Okay. So part of presenting is learning to give a presentation, not like to become a public speaker, but to this board table sitting in front of me right now. If I was standing at the end, if I'm a director of sales, if I'm a sales manager, a catering manager, an event manager, to present to a committee of 10 people that are going to be making the decision about, what are we going to use, this venue or that venue? It's a make or break deal. So presenting is critical. Now, even within your own company, presenting to a board or to a council or to an executive committee, you have to get better. So this particular workshop does teach the nuts and bolts of how to really give a great presentation, how to do a better deck, a PowerPoint, how to show things. We have salespeople that show up in client offices and travel they go into travel agencies, into DMCs to meet with the client, and they can't even know, they don't even know how to plug in their iPad or their laptop to be able to show all the pictures. So we go over all of that as well. And then let's talk about being a leader. And I know you're leaders. You're leaders. It's a tough world out there. Now, again, every country has its own issues. Not only my country, but I live in California, which is, you say one wrong thing and I'm suing you. I mean, literally. If I go, oh, you really look cute in that outfit. I don't think that was appropriate. I'm like, oh, sorry. I should have said ugly, I guess. I don't know. I thought you looked cute. I was just saying, right? So being a leader today, you have to pay close attention to who's on your team, how you develop them, and how you give them feedback and how you get them better. So as I say to everybody starts from zero when the rules change. So every time someone new comes into your organization, so let me go to my friend, the Sydney Opera House, 30 years, right?
Yeah, Lisa.
Is it Lisa?
Yeah.
Lisa. So if Lisa decided she was going to come back to the States, to Iowa, you were the Iowa girl, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. You're going to come back and you're going to run this unbelievable venue. She has all this experience, but the moment she comes back or the moment she quits and goes to a different job, she becomes a beginner. Now, this has nothing to do with your title, your paycheck, any of that. It means you have to learn it this new way. This is one of the biggest problems that happens. We bring people in and just let them go and say things like, good luck. I'll check back in a month. Hope it all goes well. So we teach how to lead. I'm not going to take somebody that's been in this business 30 years and say, now I know you don't know anything. No, you know so much. That's why I'm so glad I'm so excited. But I'm going to spend a good month with you. And I'm going to give you all the ins and outs. This, that, this, do this, don't do this. Then once you've been around a month, because she's 30 years in this business, she's going to fly like an eagle. Now, somebody who's brand new, never worked a couple years, 1 or 2 years in the industry at all, I'm going to spend several months with that person. This is how you lead. This is how you lead. You have to learn how to sell and really understand the IAC culture and this disruptive world we're living in of craziness. Like when I'm training, I say to people, I have a lot of young people, they'll say, well, people appreciate my opinion. I'm like, no, they don't. Okay. Just so you know. No, they don't. Your experience, yes, but not, you can't, your opinion doesn't really count. So we train even the younger ones coming in. Here's how you elevate yourself. Here's how you work. That's what a leader does. And a leader develops their bench strength. And that bench strength, if you think about a football team, right? You think about that allows you to create better teamwork because people are less intimidated because I'm not nervous. I come in and I go to work. You go to Bob for this, you go to Steve for that, you go to Mark for that, and you're less worried. So all of this is a part of what the community of IAC is all about because individually you are one, or even if you have a few, you got 2 or 3 venues, you still are small. But in the concept of being a part of IAC, you're part of a much bigger community for so many different reasons, but most importantly for growing your business, right? You're training, you're developing people that know what sets us apart as a private venue. I'm up against XYZ Hotel. They have a rooftop bar. They're saying that their venue is better. They're more flexible. They can do this. How do I compete against that? Just saying, well, we're the oldest this, the best that, I've got that. So that allows us to be able to have something different to say because part of it is the storytelling of IAC. Now, again, collaborating, hosting things internally, bringing these planners together. I speak at so many big international events, and there's Australia, China, Japan, London, Scotland, the US. They're all together in the same room. And I'm talking to all of these people that have all kinds of different needs for their clients. But what they have in common is either a management company or a global sales team or something like IAC. Now, when we can't be in person like this, although I would so much rather be there with you, we'd have much more fun. I truly, I feel it with just looking at the board table. We do have a lot of webinars, and the webinars are very simple. They're 60 minutes. They're very interactive. We do them about 4 to 6 times a year, but again, bringing people all over, and we try to customize those based on what people are needing. There is all kinds of things on the website of IAC that will allow you to sign up for all the different things that are going on at all times, because we're always adding to those based on what's going on in the environment of events. But for the individual learners, there is the online e-learning, which is individual, self-paced, it's real time. It allows for certification. It gives you credit. People can bill it. They can just do it on a credit card. And we have massive groups of hotels that are hundreds and hundreds of them, where individually people are going on. So it's all certified because it's showing to their boss what they did and what they actually passed. If they didn't pass, they have to go back and take it again. The
And
topics for those,
Cindy,
yes.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to stop you there. Just on that as well, the e-learning can be considered an onboarding for new staff members, as well as development work, for the existing team. It's a good onboarding tool as well, right?
It's huge onboarding. And in fact, Mark, we've just been talking about creating the whole IAC difference. So, and many of these can be developed and customized based on your needs. So you might reach out to Mark and say, you know what, we need onboarding tools. We did all the onboarding for Starwood back before Marriott, but of course Starwood's back, remember? Starwood.
Yes.
Hilarious. Okay, hilarious. They didn't buy the name. Funny. Okay, we'll come back to that at a
Yeah,
over
I need to come
cocktails.
back to that if you've got insight.
We'll come
around
back
that.
to that.
Yes,
over
okay.
Okay. But anyway, we did all their onboarding on e-learning. So we customized that. So you can, to Mark's point, you can use that so people can come on and learn about the sales process and what's going on. These are what we have in place now, but it doesn't mean we are constantly, we have a screening room, a green room. We're always creating new ones, but there's prospecting, new business development, asking better questions, the probing process, selling those USPs, features, adjectives, and benefits, how to present, closing, handling objections. These are all examples of e-learning. We have specific ones for reservations, because reservations, if you have restaurants or anywhere they're taking reservations, depending on your venues, we teach them very similar things, but it's dedicated just to reservations. And then there's upselling ones, more for people that might be working in food and beverage or in conference services, things like that, where they're learning some of the same skills, but in more of a kind of modified version than we do with the salespeople. So back to Mark's point, it is great for onboarding, unbelievable, because it allows you to say plug and play. I want you to go through these, and they're all IAC branded, so it's good. So it kind of takes that look. It refreshes skills. Some people are returning to the workforce that didn't work, like took several years off. There's a lot of mothers that had kids and they took off time, and now they're kind of like, the kids are like 7 and they're like, yeah, I got to go back to work. Okay. So it's really good for people that were doing the job, but now they're like, I kind of lost my edge a little bit. It supports any of your specific training, but I think the best thing is it allows you to be able to keep them on task, because their resume, their CV looks good. Of course it looks good. They had, AI wrote it, of course. And then they had all their friends, put down as references. So it looks good. This allows you to do a little bit of testing so you know exactly what's going on. So it is all part of this IAC Institute. So it shows where you can go on, and we are the resources. We are their bandwidth. We're there. We will create and customize and be on calls, and we are Mark's team. So whatever you need, we are there to help make all of that happen. So as a review, you have to have something that differentiates you all the time. And IAC does that. Classroom, sales skills, and online. Because I do believe that how you sell matters. It does matter. Because if it was that easy, it would just be like buying on Amazon. book this, add that, put in some dinner, put in that. It's the processes that really matter. It's how your customers feel based on your processes and how you sell. Because when they engage with you, that's what matters most. And having the ability to connect with these people sets the tone for everything else. So my time with you today was to chat about how to really up the game on selling, to have that well-defined sales process. You need repeatable, sustainable processes. So whether I call on a Monday or a Thursday, or I call in January or I call in November, it's very consistent. We have to learn to listen better, take better notes. Remember, I said we have to send those notes back, and we teach how to do that. Our responsiveness, we've got to be fast. We have to understand the customer's needs. The customers are savvy today. They can see anything online. It's like, stop, tell me this, tell me that. Our personalized proposals, respecting the customer's time, the professionalism. We're doing more etiquette training, which is so sad, today than we have done in the last 10 years, because all this work from home, and this is US now, so bless you in Australia, but in our country, we were in our pajamas a little too long. And so trying to be elegant, taking somebody to dinner, it's like, wow, comb your hair. Okay. So we're doing a lot of work in that area. We're also building so much rapport among everybody that comes, because sometimes I might be one person in a small venue and I don't have anyone but maybe a GM. So when I'm in a class or I'm with other IAC people, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a great idea to help build those stronger relationships. So that's our QR code. Shelly Marlowe handles everything with Mark. And now I've got about 7 minutes or so of my actual allotted time. Does anybody have any questions? And I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Any questions?
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions for Cindy? Can I start then? Thank you. I'd start, Cindy. Just the point that you raised about the proactive over reactive, which is really the core way of grabbing new business or grabbing business that leaves less on the table, if you like.
Yes.
And given that you've traveled extensively and you've worked with the whole range of different types of venues, have you got any best practice tips or anything about what people are doing that really separates them out and gets them more success? Because it's very hard to sell, when you don't know when the person has got an event and so forth.
Right. So there's a couple things, and here's where IAC can actually help on that too, because coming in and doing events and inviting planners in. But even when you go to all your trade shows and you go to any of the trade shows that you go to, or around your country or wherever it is, most salespeople are so slow to the game. They're gone a week at all these shows. They come back, they have all their names of everybody they met. Maybe they've got their business cards, maybe they got their QR codes and all of that. And it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for them to even respond. Respond. So there's some very simple things of, if you just are quicker and more proactive when you meet people. The other thing is working the events. Now, some people hate to hear this from me. We have got to be back on property, back in the venues, and you might already be in the venues, but back in the venues where I'm walking around. I'm the event manager that sold this, right? And I'm walking around. I talk to the meeting planner or the event leader, and I'm just thanking them for everything. But now I'm out to all those people. And I'm wondering, now it's not like I walk up to the table, hi, I'm Cindy, I sold this. Do any of you have an event? No. We have to teach how to engagement, how you walk around. How's everybody? We have salespeople that work at venues that act like they're butlers. They stand back like this. The toilets are that way. Smoking over there. They stand like butlers. You've got to bring it. You got to walk around. Now, that's just the simple stuff. The other thing is, if some of you are sales or directors, I don't know what we have here, but 1 hour a day, 1 hour a day minimum, new business development. I don't care about a call report. I don't care how many calls you make. You can make 2, you can make 4. You shut down the email, you shut down the phones, and you literally, through all your different contacts, your LinkedIn's, all the organizations, and you literally are reaching out. And you're saying, we just did this incredible, I know you're with a tech company, we just did this incredible team building for XYZ tech company, even if you can't say the name of it because it's confidential. We just did this, and I would love to be able to take a few minutes, even if I'm leaving a voicemail. 1 hour a day will produce so much business. Your 2026 is already booked. And this is where we see salespeople that don't know how to do this. But those are my few little tips. Just
Right, introducing Mark Cooper, as you all know, CEO of IACC. This is a great report that has been going for 10 at least years, and Mark has been at the helm for the whole time. So we look forward to your insights, Mark. Over to you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you guys. And it's great to have an opportunity to share something very different from the first hour that you had with wonderful Cindy. So I'm going to try, though, to just capture a little bit of her energy if I can, but I know I'm not going to be able to reach the heights that she has the ability to do. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing with you our flagship report, our global report, which is 10 years in the making, that, which is the IACC Meeting Room of the Future, Global Trends. Now, the one thing I will say right up front, in the spirit of full disclosure, is that although we talk about it with this title, it's so much more about the overall business event experience. It's not just what goes on in the meeting room. We know that's important, but as we were primed beautifully with Cindy, you know, an event and a successful event is so much more than, you know, what goes on in the meeting room. So we're going to be talking and breaking down the next 60 minutes into, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about the research, because I'm a firm believer that if you're going to believe something, you need to understand its provenance and where it's come from and whose opinions they are. So I'll explain a little bit about how it came about and who's been involved in that research. But then what we do is we break down, you know, that visioneering the future of meetings into fulfilling the meeting objectives, how technology is evolving. So this is definitely, look to Catherine to see whether she nods her head or shakes disapprovingly. You know, of course, the physical characteristics of our venues and the meeting rooms are included in that. But more so in the last 5 years, the ethical and sustainable venue sourcing side of things is massive, and changing at its fastest pace that we've seen, you know, ever before. And then, of course, we wouldn't be looking into the future of our industry if we didn't look at culinary and beverage trends as well. So as we do this, and as I navigate through, I will say right now, if there's any point you want to raise a question, maybe even, you know, disagree because you're seeing something different, and that's okay, because the other health check is that this is a global report. And there are cultural differences, geographical differences as well. And although we'll be picking up on some of these as we move through, you operate in a unique environment. We all do. So, you know, so some of them may resonate and others may not as well. And then in regards to the research, of course, I'll share with you these slides so you can take them back and share with your team, but you can download the full report. And this really is just the highlights. It's over 50 pages, packed full of not only the data that we've got from our meeting planners, but also opinions from industry experts and operators and meeting organisers. So there's a lot in the report if you really want to dig in a little bit deeper. So whose opinions have we got here in what we're just about to share? Of course, we've got meeting planners, meeting organisers and buyers, whether they're full-time or part-time. That this year, it's the critical mass in terms of the survey that we were sent out. But then we've also, over the years, IAC is, we feel that we're in a really good position, knowing lots of industry experts, gurus, whether it comes to technology, nutrition, allergens, design, ergonomics of meeting spaces, acoustics, lighting, you name it. We've got lots of friends around the world that are really, truly great at what they do. So again, our role has been to bring all of those people together to help us create a really solid foundation for the report. And we couldn't do it without industry partners as well. So it's not just IACS, we're stewards of it, but we work with our financial partners, which you see along the bottom there, Encore and Catherine included. So thank you, Catherine, for your support of Meeting Room in the Future over the years, and other industry associations, including the largest collection of meeting planners globally. I think some 18,000 under the MPI banner, which is Meeting Professionals International. Not so big in your part of the world, I appreciate, but I do believe there is an Asia Pacific chapter within MPI and also PCMA. So really, really do thank them. So we are a decade old, and I can't believe it, because this idea came up driving around the streets of Sydney 10 years ago. So it was in your own city that Meeting Room of the Future came about. And it was simply, as we were there for one of the knowledge festivals in your city, our global board of directors were chatting about the fact that all the industry research and reports that are out there always seem to be focused on the really big conferences, the 5,000 people from Google going to the convention center and the 2,000 people here. And that's not the world we live in. And so when we look at the research, we are very firmly focused on events of typically between 50 and 200 attendees. But many of the events that we have are even less. So we decided way back then, 10 years ago in Sydney, that we would create our own report, and it would be focused on small to mid-sized conferences, meetings, training courses, kickoff meetings, board meetings. And that's really where it all started. 45,000 downloads later, at least one report a year. During COVID, we did 2, and once we did 3. And this year, 204 meeting planners from across corporate organizations, associations, government-based organizations as well, all gave us their opinion. So we're really lucky that we've got such a rich sort of variety and collection from around the world. So 3 of the things that you're going to hear, maybe, once or twice as we go through things, is that if we thought that experience planning, and experience-rich meetings was something that's been around for a while now, you're right. But actually, the importance of that, the critical nature of that leading to a successful event is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, it doesn't escape me that that's what you represent here today, and why it's so important that you do offer these high experience, unique environments for us to meet that growing demand with meeting planners. And it's probably why you're as busy as you are today with meeting inquiries, and more than you were maybe 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years ago. Technology and hybrid meetings is continuing to evolve as we find a happy ground between returning back to live events and digitally live events, as I call them now, where we've kept all of the benefits of being remote and streaming and brought them into live environments now so that they're digitally rich. And we'll be looking a little bit about how we're flexing in terms of, or how meeting planners are flexing in terms of the type of venues that they want to use, because it's evolving. And even if we feel we're in the spotlight today, keeping a close eye on that and what's influencing the type of venues that our meeting planners are going to may help us in deciding where we want to have strong connections and collaborations with other venue types that will complement our own. So there's a lot that we're going to run through today, but first of all, let's take a look at the first area, which is, how we fulfill the meeting objectives. So the reason why these events are coming to our venues, and what they're hoping to achieve. And there is a lot in here. This for me is right up front, probably the most important slide for us to feel good about. And that is simply because when we asked meeting organizers, what are the most important aspects of a meeting? For every one of those years that we've been running over the decade, number one has been education, content, and topics. And that was unsurprising. We're coming together because we've got to share something, do something, and share it with our attendees. This year, for the first time ever, the venue physical characteristics have come first, and venue food and beverage is second. What we do and what we offer within our venues is the most important element of the investment that our clients are making. And not just this is the reason for meeting and where can we find a venue that can actually satisfy it. It's completely turned on its head, and it's all about the fact of the importance of the experience. So I encourage you to take this away now and feel really good about the role that you play, but the importance of that you have in terms of the overall meeting success. So we had to take this one statistic that jumped straight out of this year and kind of dig in and say, well, why? What's behind this? And one of our members who's very close, they run a small venue. They actually get closer to their meeting organizers than many venues. They even go in and run breakout sessions and small think tanks and groups. So they get really close to the events that they hold, and which is why we respect the opinion of Sebastian here. And what he's pointed out is that the environment that we put our attendees in is critical to the level of creative thinking, human connection that they make with each other, and the ideas that flow from that. If we put people in a boring and uninspiring environment, they will be boring and uninspired. And so there's now this firm belief that the environment is critical to the outcomes of the meeting. And that's our environments, which is really great. And I'm sure you've all got great examples of those unique environments that Cindy talked about, and just how you sell that in regards to your team to feel proud about what they represent, and your clients is really important too. So that's pretty profound, and something for us all to take away in 2025. It also, as we look at the other areas, there are four that really stood out in terms of what matters most to meeting planners. One of those, of course, we've just talked about it, the experience creation. That is a growing priority, but not just that. The importance that our planners are putting on natural daylight, warmer tones, dimmable lighting. And you see the two pictures that we've got above here. This is actually of quite a historic venue, in fact, very historic venue in the Netherlands. And same room, but they invested earlier this year in very high-end lighting. So not just your normal LEDs or dimmable light, but very high-end there, where it would change the tone from a daytime meeting session to then the evening when they returned for a dinner. And just the look and feel of that room. And it is all about being more flexible with our spaces, and particularly in the experiential venue area. You're quite often having to have a room for a briefing, but then you're turning it around for a drinks reception, and then, for a buffet the next day, and for an exhibition the next day after that. So lighting is an area that we're seeing big investment in there. But also acoustics. How does sound travel? How does that work? Can attendees hear each other? It is impacting engagement. And if we're really good at what we do in terms of acoustics, again, that's a point worth pointing out. And memories come from being in unique spaces, being surprised, being impressed. So all the emotions that are related to stimulating the senses at a meeting, that's what's creating those memorable moments, which again, we talked about before the break. we're also seeing evidence alongside what the meeting planners are telling us, that our venues are thinking a lot more about creating fun spaces. It used to be, it makes me laugh a little bit because we used to talk always about networking. And 10 years ago, we'd be worried about using the word networking. It was a bit weak. It was a bit, it didn't sound very businesslike. Then we moved and we're talking more about socializing. And again, that felt a little bit different. Is it okay to socialize at meetings and business events? And we've got over that one now, and now we're into this fun. We want environments that are fun, inspiring, getting our attendees outside, the festivalization of a business event, games, all these sort of things that are fun. We're seeing a lot more in regards to those, and we're seeing our venues really leaning into that and buying into that sort of environment, whether it's a game or something that it can do as a small group during a break time or even a lunchtime at the end of the day. These fun things to do in a venue are really being developed.
Mark, sorry, Catherine, again, I always do this, but here never.
Yeah, hi,
Is
Catherine.
Hi, is that because from further deeper dives, is that because of you're seeing, the 4 generations, that venues and PCOs or what have you are trying to appeal to such a vast audience, perhaps of attendees to events? Is that what's driving this, or like, what's behind that?
It's an interesting question, because in a little while we'll talk about maybe how no, you're not stepping ahead. We will talk about generations in a different light. I think quite possibly, because as I look to the examples of the sort of games that are being played, they're very traditional games. So they could be Skipples, they could be Jenga, they could be traditional fairground sort of type stalls that are being set up in our conference venues. And of course, that fun goes across all generations. So I think you could well be onto something there. The other element I think that we're hearing a lot is that these environments give people an opportunity over an activity to build a relationship, as opposed to just putting them in a room with tea and coffee and expecting them to talk. So when there's a bit, it's an excuse to interact, and then they become, the relationship builds, and then it becomes a deeper relationship. So I think there could be a number of things there, but forming the human connection, strong human connection at an event, I think is, that's evidence, and across generations, I think that's a really good point. So yeah, thank you. And keep going, keep interrupting me. This is excellent. I love it. So let's look a little bit now at the physical venue characteristics. And of course, this has always been a big part of, the role that we play as venues, the spaces that we put people in. And yes, it's the meeting rooms, but more so now, it's the social spaces outdoors, networking areas, the places to collaborate, and then a lot more investment in the design and the investment of these spaces. And for many years in the industry, the meeting room was the most heavily invested area of the space, and that's just not the case now. Yes, it's an important area to have the right acoustics, the right equipment, the right lighting. Don't get me wrong, it's still really important. But by equal measure, we're hearing from architects that are building new facilities that, they are investing as much in the spaces outside of the meeting room as they are in, because of the importance of those, particularly in that whole collaboration. And we probably shouldn't be surprised, because when we think about it, there are a lot of meetings now that are increasing the white space that they have. And what I mean by that is the time between the sessions. So the networking before the day starts, the break times now used to be 15 minutes, and you just about have enough time to drink your coffee, go to the loo and come back. And now you're seeing 30, sometimes even 45-minute breaks between sessions. And you're also seeing sometimes 90-minute lunches. I'm sure you're experiencing that in your own environment. So as these networking times outside of the meeting evolve, the spaces that we're holding our attendees in, need to adapt as well. So let's take a little bit of a look now at the type of venues used, and you'll be glad to see, speciality event venues as well sit within there. Interestingly, and I wasn't listening in, but I kind of was when you first arrived. I hear somebody say something. You were reflecting on an event you'd been to, and you said, "I think you were at a hotel," because you said, "Oh, it was the hotel room, but they made a great effort." Maybe to dress the room up. So if I interpreted that correctly, I think that's a wonderful statement. Yeah, okay, I got that. So that's a great point because people don't want to be in uninspiring, boring locations, and unfortunately, a lot of big box hotels still have the one ballroom and the one boardroom, and they don't have the ability because they're so utilitarian. They can't create the unique spaces, so they have to build it. And then when they do build it, we're impressed because they've gone to a lot of effort and it raised, it exceeded our expectation. But of course, there's always a cost to building something from scratch each time. So it's no surprise that, for the budget savvy meeting organizer these days, coming into environments like ours where the stage is already set means that they don't have to allocate their budget to making a boring room look appealing. So hotels continue to drop in terms of overall percentage of the most venues used. Conference and meetings focused venues are on the rise, and specialty event venues are definitely on the rise as well. And we're seeing that, but not just that, the use of using more than one. You may have your conference in the Novotel Darling Harbour, but you need to be at the Australian Museum for an evening awards dinner, and the two complement each other really well and need to work together. Bit of a shift as well we're seeing this year between residential events and non-residential. So we saw a lot of move towards non-residential in the last 2 or 3 years. But now there seems to be an importance that the experience goes beyond the 5 p.m. finish in the event. So an overnight, a dinner, something of that nature that again brings people together. So we are seeing, we did see at least this year, that there's a move back to residential. We also saw, that whilst the majority of global events are occurring in the urban venue settings, there is in Europe particularly, and I call out our sort of regions as they step out from, I guess, from the norm. There were in Europe a number of meeting planners that are moving more to rural venues outside of major cities. And we do wonder if that is probably linked to the cost of overnight stays in some major cities. I mean, I've just booked just yesterday, a very normal hotel in the middle of Toronto later this month. And there's nothing under $500 a night, just room only. It's, the cost of, but it can be London, it will be Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Paris. The costs, continue to go up. So a little bit of a shift there in Europe, but no evidence really outside of Europe at this point. But we'll keep an eye on that. The venue must have elements. So again, remembering that this data is all what our buyers are telling us. It's not what our opinion is as operators. Location, travel, time and access is always the number one, particularly now with increased business travel costs. So if your venue is really accessible and in an affordable way and a speed way, these are great but unique selling points that you can be locking into. Food and beverage is right up there. So again, if your feedback that you've got from the last year from your events on food and beverage is 9.7 out of 10, or right up there in terms of a statement, or your competitors are not as good at food and beverage as you are, it's a statement to elevate that and talk more about that than maybe some of the other areas. Now, this is where I don't look Catherine in the eye, because it's where we've seen a little bit of a shift where there's just a general view that technology, sustainability, and social programs have shifted down. Now, I'm going to countenance that with when you look at this research, of course, when something becomes a priority, something else has to give. So that's the first thing I would say. The other is when something is being delivered well and we're happy with it, whether it be technology or sustainability, or we've already elevated our social programs, we've achieved what we want to, which is a right balance. So again, that slips as an immediate priority for change, and just becomes we've got that covered. So think about that as you look at the top and the bottom of the charts. It's not necessarily saying that sustainability is no longer important, but I will pick up on a couple of areas that there is a little bit of worrying evidence out there, as to where generally we might be heading in one area that's not technology, Catherine. So let's move into this is one of my favorite areas in regards to if we are willing to go beyond what we do in relation to providing space, catering, service, and sometimes accommodation. And we're willing to think, what more can we provide as a complete service that again helps our buyers, helps us get competitive edge? Then where we ask meeting planners, what are you willing to consider outsourcing, i.e. giving to another organization to do, so you're not having to do it yourself? Transportation's always up there. Housing management, so this is your hotel rooms, if it is in a city, your hotel block, your hotel contracts may be separate from the venue for the meeting, so they're willing to give those away. Event production services dropped a little. So all they're saying there is that there aren't quite so many that are looking necessarily to outsource those. And particularly with smaller meetings, they might be, they might be willing to manage that a little more themselves. But again, what I would say in all of these areas is that each time we go to our meeting planner audience, we get a different sample and different meeting planners in different environments. So the last time where we compare these figures to the last time we did it was 2023. So it's every other year we go to meeting planners. Now,
on that note, you've really offended me, Mark, so I really have to let her know.
Say goodbye to Kat.
Enjoy. Lovely to meet you all.
It's great to see you, Catherine.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Mark. Thanks.
So you're sat in a Clifton's venue. This is one of the examples that came straight out of the CEO's mouth, that Vanessa Green, who operates Clifton venues. So that's Stephen's boss, by the way, Vanessa. So if you bump into her, be really nice about how Stephen has treated you today, and he'll be much appreciative.
Thank you.
But back to the data. Interestingly, Clifton's have talked about how they are switching to something, for instance, called natural spectrum lighting. And I had to look it up, but basically it is, the closest artificial lighting that mirrors natural lighting inside. So it's again getting us closer to nature and as close to outdoors as we can possibly be. And by doing that, by investing in the environmental upgrades across the properties, Vanessa's commented there that satisfaction's jumped by 1.4 points. And they're definitely seeing a return on the investment there. So again, as you go into conversations within your own properties, looking at where your investment will be over the next 2 to 3 years, these are all ones that can trigger really significant increases in attendee satisfaction. Or if you've done it already, you may well be seeing this as well, and great work if you have. We talk about, and we've talked about flexibility of spaces, and I know in your world that flexibility of spaces is absolutely key. And you talked about it in terms of, having to do that 1.5 hour switch around, the event closes or the venue closes to the public, and then it has to be turned around for your private event. Flexibility is absolutely key. It's interesting to see, though, in this dynamic where they have flexed it permanently. And what I mean by that is they've moved to traditional auditorium style meeting room, and made that a cinema room. So that's all that room with the nice blue seats has. And then the other room and the other space, that's been designed in what I call the public pre-function space of the venue. And its only purpose is for 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 very small groups, where they, will just hang out, have what I call accidental collisions, in terms of meeting somebody, talking, and oh yeah, I can help you with that, and we should connect outside of this meeting. So again, that shows the investment in the design, the furniture, the acoustics, the lighting, in creating just spaces for people to hang out. And I often think that, in our world and within IAC's world, we sometimes undersell or don't sell the richness of the spaces we provide for just hanging out for attendees outside of the meeting room. We often understandably gravitate towards racing straight to the meeting room to show our clients those. So just a thought there to really, point out where you've got some great pre-function spaces. We always ask in under 5 words, what is the ideal physical characteristics of your, ideal venue? So the biggest ones there are the ones that, they're the things that mean the most. And again, are these words that we're using in our conversations, in our marketing online. So a lot of words in there, but the ones that are, that are standing out is airy, natural light. And in fact, interestingly, I'm even seeing venues around the world that have invested in their HVAC air conditioning systems. So, the whole pure air coming into a room, and where they've invested beyond the norm, they're talking about those proactively in their marketing, just because we've become a lot more conscious after the pandemic about the air quality and the spaces that we're in for a long period of time. We'll look a little bit now at food and beverage, and I often pause here for a minute just to reflect, because as we talk about what creates a great experience or what creates a great memory for an attendee versus what doesn't, it's about, and I learned this, at a very superficial level. I'm no neuroscientist, but I was taught very quickly that it's all about how many senses you can trigger. Whether it's something you look at, smell, taste, feel. And of course, food and beverage is the one aspect of what we do that can touch more senses than I think anything else. And so therefore it has got all the ingredients, excuse the pun, to be the one thing that can elevate the experience over any other aspect of what you do, even service, even facilities. So as we look at culinary beverage trends, it's not just about how inspiring the food is, but it's about how we're dealing with this real changing world of increased health and well-being elements. The huge explosion of dietary preferences and allergens, and how we deal with that operationally. And guys, I know more than anyone, because I hear it from you all the time, just how much of a challenge it is to deal with those increased requirements. You can tell the sun's actually coming up now. I'm not going to go and take another picture, but I'm going to just close my blind very quickly so I don't look like a zebra.
Sun is coming up.
It's almost criminal shutting the sun out. We get it for a whole day a year. It's amazing. So let's take a dive into some of these views of our meeting planners, and it always is an area that it's the easiest conversation to have with meeting organizers, either because they're passionate about food or because they've had food and beverage challenges at meetings and they know how critical it is. I often say food is the glue that knits an event together in terms of success, or it's the bomb that can blow it apart, because it can be the biggest distraction and negative talking point in an event when it doesn't go well. So it's pretty important. So meeting planners are telling us more than ever that food and beverage is a key part of that meeting experience. And even though we've seen continuously over the years, probably because now we can, we can have different DNA testing, we can test at home. People have been interested in, oh, have I got an allergen with this, or a mild, intolerance to that. We've become a lot more aware, and even over 2 years ago, there's a big jump in terms of requests to accommodate food allergens and personal eating plans. And I have to tell you, as much as this is a challenge for us as venue operators, and I don't want to keep going back to that, it's actually a really big challenge for our meeting planners, because they're rightly concerned that when they deal with so many dietary preferences, that the chance of getting something wrong or having a really important allergen in amongst that big list increases. And if they miss that, then they're liable. And so they really a challenge with it as well. So when you can come together and give them absolute confidence that you've got this, even if 60% of your attendees have got something we need to know, you can be seen as a really strong partner. We're seeing increasingly the link between, food served at different stages of the day and the attendee energy levels. And yes, there are certain parts of the world like Scandinavia that have been locked into, food for the brain in the morning break times, and less of the sugary in the afternoons, and, the different points of the day to keep energy levels high. But again, meeting planners are starting to move more towards it. And I think even those, like North America, that have taken the longest to move into more health conscious food choices at breaks, have moved that way. So if you're fortunate enough to be looking after international attendees and guests, as many of us are, then hopefully we're continuing to keep people healthy and happy in their meetings, because health and well-being is really important. When we jump back into Europe a little bit now, when we think about the importance of food and beverage, one of our leaders that Stephen knows very well, and Catherine does, as he's been to our Asia conference before, but he's a director of sales and marketing for a meeting venue in the centre of Brussels, and he talks about the fact that one of the reasons maybe why food and beverage is such an important element to the meeting experience is that it's deeply tied to culture, hospitality, and social interactions. So they do see the quality of the food that our clients order through us and we put on as a reflection of the overall quality of the meeting. So again, very much not secondary, and content being primary. It's that evidence that it's an important part of the overall tapestry. And as we move into sustainable catering, we're seeing, less of a move towards how do we, compost food waste properly? How do we put it to good use, secondary use, etc. There's a lot of movement now where that's becoming a negative strategy. And what's becoming a more positive one is, well, how do we reduce waste in the first place? How do we avoid walking away from lunches and the table looking as full as it did when we walked in? And so that's great to see, because the last thing we want to be is considered by our attendees as being unsustainable, because we've walked away and half of the food is still left after everybody's eaten. And it's interesting for those of us who have been in the industry for a little bit longer, will remember when it used to be the biggest fear of meeting planners that the buffet table would be empty before everyone had finished. And now the biggest fear is that it's going to be half full when everyone's finished. So really interested to see that strategy moving. And as again, we look to some of the differences worldwide, as much as there are many, many similarities, and the majority are similar around the world. North America, for instance, is really focused at the moment on having good, strong, clear nutritional information, maybe again linked to health, dietary preferences, allergens, matching the food and tone. Is this a meeting that is celebrating success of the organization, or is it a pretty heavy meeting that it's about merging two companies with two personalities? food actually and beverage can play a part in choose menu planning in terms of the different, to matching the tone of the event, which is really interesting to take it to that next level. And, health and well-being is absolutely core to the business goals of the clients coming out of Europe. And so venues are having to really make sure they align with that as well. And then we've got, how does food and beverage play a key role in terms of the event experience? I'd say to you that actually, it is not just serve it. It is part of the strategy, and it is a catalyst for well-being. And so, as we look at that, we're almost, we're good stewards for the well-being of our attendees, and our opportunity to talk to our meeting planners when we have a site inspection about, why our food and menus are developed the way they are and linking that to attendee health and well-being, and maybe even going onto the website and looking at the corporate social responsibility strategy of that client we're looking to win and aligning with their values. They are evaluating venues, I can tell you, through a social lens now, whereas in the past we did talk about sustainability and the importance of it. Everybody agreed that, but meeting planners used to then stop and not evaluate venues. It was not part of the RFP process. Now we're seeing that it is. So it is a lot more important. This point, we're looking at the likelihood to choose a venue based on social responsibility. And that's where we see that increase from 68% to 73%. So that's what I was just talking about. We're continuing to, to invest in these areas as venues, quite rightly so. But now, thankfully, our buyers are starting to buy based upon those preferences. What we found through our Green Star initiative is that actually it's interesting that we do lots of really good stuff when it comes to sustainable practices in our venues. But when we ask the question of, do you do all of these things, we sometimes have to go to all of our departments within the organization and say, do we procure green, electricity? Do we what do we do with water waste? What we do? We actually are doing great stuff, but a lot of it is under the radar, and we haven't brought it all together in terms of one encyclopedic knowledge base. So I do encourage you, if again you think you might be in that scenario, and we'll pick up on it in a little while, to bring all that together so that you can talk about it confidently to clients, because as you can see here, it's making a difference. Consider venues if they demonstrate strong social responsibility credentials as well. So it's not just about the climate and how we're dealing with those issues. It's about our communities, our people, diversity, equity. There are a lot of things that really do resonate with the corporate strategies of our clients that they want to see from their venue partners, or indeed any suppliers that they go to. So the break and the mealtime formats and the way we do those and the service styles, is constantly adapting, whether it's, heavy on the networking side, or we want to create some theatrics and do more than just food and beverage. So there's a lot that can go on here, particularly in breaks, morning and afternoon breaks. And we can bring variation through there. We can bring a real connection to something that, food trends in a city or a region or other suppliers. And the one example I'll give that I heard a little while ago was that it was from a well-respected venue in the center of New York City. And they were constantly being asked, oh, well, this is great, but, we've heard that the cookie or the cupcake bakery, in Times Square, etc., is really trending at the moment. Can we get them to bring those in? And we, and they used to say, no, we've got our own caterers, we're doing this, etc. After a while, they suddenly embraced it and flipped. So they went out and formed strategic alliances with different providers in the city, so they could bring a, such and such cupcake in on, to the second day of their meeting in the morning to just add value and enhance. And they're still making money from it. They're doing business. And yes, it's a little bit more work, but what a great sales statement when you're selling that sort of difference. And it's not just what we do, but it's embracing everything that's great about a region or a city or even a country. But let's get back to some of the stats here. Creative food stations are definitely top of the food preference. And, that's an area that you can shine. Health, we talked about that a little bit there. A large percentage there want healthy food and beverage. The flexibility piece is an interesting one. And I do appreciate that, if you're in a property like the Cliftons property you're in now, being in a dedicated environment like that, they have the ability to have continuous tea and coffee throughout the day, as I'm sure you've experienced. And that's a great thing. And they've been selling that advantage for a long time over the hotels that would bring out a tea and coffee station dead on 2:30 and it will be gone by 3 p.m. And if you came out at 3:15, the coffee was cold and the tea was stewed. That was, that's been going around for a long time. But if within your experiential venues, you have the ability to offer more flexible service, and with this I mean, for instance, even bean to cup coffee machines now are more flexible, more movable than before. So you can bring them in. If you can bring as much flexibility as possible into your meetings and business events, i.e., meaning they don't have to break at exactly that time, to be able to get things fresh, then that again is a really great way to position yourself. More vegan and vegetarian options available. So that's the preferences for the future. We want more vegan and vegetarian options. Now, this is where our meeting planners are divided. Some want more frequent and shorter breaks, some want longer breaks or meal times. So I don't think I can give you any advice in terms of where you go, except for the fact that recognize that every client might be different. And, don't assume that they want a 20-minute or a 30-minute break or a 1-hour lunch break. Really probe and ask how important is the time outside of the main meeting, and what can we do to help fill that time for you. Now we'll look at things like the shifts in intention. What do planners want? And they do want us to reimagine our formats. We want creative food stations, and definitely as we embrace, the cultural differences and the religious differences of our attendees, when we can use, themes and culinary, sort of cultures and different styles of food throughout the event, then they appeal more. We sometimes refer to this, you may have heard of it, in terms of sort of inclusive menus. An inclusive menu concept is really simple. It's make as much of what you would normally deal with as an exceptional dietary request part of your regular planning. So with that, if all of your main menu was gluten-free, you don't have to deal with a gluten-free request as an exceptional item. So it takes one off the list. Everything's gluten-free. So inclusive menu planning is about make your main menu offering as inclusive of all of the dietary exceptionals as you can, and then it makes your list of dealing with exceptional requests that much smaller. But certainly creative food stations is big, and overall it is, it is a part of the whole design of the event and not just a nice to have. Now we always ask the question, what frustrates you? And what frustrates our buyers today, this year, 2025, high cost, low perceived value. Of course, inflation has driven our costs higher than they've ever been. Everything is not moving up 1, 2, 3, even 5%. It's moving up 10, 15, 20%, sometimes even more. Go to places like Las Vegas and it would blow your mind in terms of what you would pay for, for just a soda or a bag of fries. But as we deal with those, or as we see these frustrations there, it's interesting to see a lot of our venues are adapting menus that are using lower priced ingredients but still attractive, and offering those as alternatives. So the margin's still there. We're just not negotiating on the menu price and keeping all the really expensive ingredients in there. Inflexibility is massive. So this one always has been. One of the first things we say on the site inspection when a client comes is, we would love to tailor something to your needs. We would love to, for the executive chef to hear about what you want. We love creativity. We love doing things different. And then unfortunately that loses its way, and you suddenly get to 2 weeks before the event, and the meeting planners are being hit with, here's your menu and this is a choice that you make. And there isn't encouragement to have those conversations. So, they're feeling that inflexible menus, and sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes meeting planners, and I stand in front of meeting planners as much as I do in front of our members around the world. And sometimes, I'm saying, well, it's your fault if you leave it until 7 days, 5 days before your event, and then ask your venue to start being flexible and devising menus and thinking about different, approaches. It's your laziness that has shut that door. You've got to be thinking about it well in advance. Food waste concerns, we chatted about those. We're being told clearly that that is a concern. Lack of staff knowledge on dietary needs. It's an interesting one because, of course, we comply with legislation and those that make our menus, and to a degree, the labelling of those. I think we're all covered, and quite rightly so. But actually, this is more about the staff that are there, the service staff. How knowledgeable are the staff that somebody walks up to at the buffet to say, I'm a vegan, is it okay to eat that? Or and so there's a lot more focus on making sure all the venue staff can answer questions when attendees come to us. So now we're heading to the technology piece. I should have flipped it around knowing Catherine would leave, because she would definitely have some great input in regards to this area. And again, we've gone through radical change through the pandemic to returning to live and celebrating everything around that, to then becoming what I call, being digitally live. So let's take a look at this from a meeting planner perspective. AI has jumped, as you would imagine. So 2 years ago, it was tiny, but it was there. Now meeting planners are using AI a lot. And I would say, arguably, I would expect that if we asked the same question in January, 12 months later, we would probably see that going to 25%. All of our meeting planners are training around it. What is their occupancy of meeting rooms? How many breakouts do they need for their event when they bring it back the next year? How do we help with managing our dietary preferences and creating tables and lists, etc., etc. Now, I don't necessarily have a recommendation for you in terms of how you can capitalize on the fact that your buyers are using AI more. I don't think it's that straightforward, but by equal measure, certainly within IACC, we know that our operators are using AI a lot to evaluate certainly revenue management, occupancy. So there's a lot there on the operator side for us equally to be adapting. But things like data security, that sits right up there. Artificial intelligence, we talked about that. Interactive technology. So these are all elements that are not necessarily now reserved for larger meetings. Remember, or larger conferences. Remember, we're very specifically asking for their opinions on events of under 200 people. I'm a big fan of digital signage. I have been for a long time, and moving away from paper, but also the versatility of that and how it lights areas up. And I know it's a small picture, but this was actually our meeting room of the future booth in the Toronto Convention Centre for MPI's annual conference. And we built this space, and we used 2 floor standing digital signs then, and they were groundbreaking back in 2019. Nothing like that had ever existed that wasn't a TV screen. But now digital signage has become so much more affordable, and I see it all the time now, not just being moved around, between rooms and outside breakout rooms, but it's become waterproof and being put outside, using batteries to welcome people. Costs are dropping, and it is definitely a sustainable option. And 49% of meeting planners have implemented it and found that it's improved the communication for their delegates. And Joe Santo from Encore in the US, again, it's just highlighting that the introduction of those banners, it's been really valuable. And what I think actually is relevant to you as a group, I'm assuming that the different venues, whether it's the Collider, the Australian Museum, HostCo, wherever you are, I bet you've got big, large, open pre-function spaces where you're doing receptions and exhibits during the day and closing drinks in the afternoon. We have, and I haven't got an image here, I should have brought one, but we've got an example of what I showed you on this slide here, but much larger and a square. We call them almost like a totem pole LED. And there we're seeing some of our venues with very big pre-function spaces that are flipping a lot, using those to change up the theme, the color, the information. So welcoming people as they come through the door, providing, warm images of people laughing, networking in the evening versus sponsor information for an exhibition during the day. So they don't have to be small ones like this. They can actually be great big totem pole, and some are being built and housed for a period of time around pillars as well that exist. So it's a lot of investment in digital signage and in an affordable way. So it's great to see that. With every trend, again, there's frustrations. We ask what the challenge is. Slow failing internet is no surprise, is right up there, and that's because if we think about all of the just the importance of the internet working properly and how it's touching all aspects of what we do, whether it's hybrid, virtual attendees coming in, whether it's working with a conference app, whether it's polling our audience in the plenary room. Internet infrastructure is really important, or rather it's really important when it's not there and goes wrong. So again, if you've got a great internet infrastructure and great speeds, it's something that I would really advocate that you talk a lot about with your clients that are using internet in various different ways. And you can see crashing apps, AV issues, hybrid streaming, these are all just examples of things that are still here today and continuing to be used. They haven't gone away. When we look at, well, what is changing then? And I think, this is also good to see, well, what have we moved away from? Hybrid live streaming is the top failure concern. Fewer planners are adopting new technology, except for audience participation. So I think we've seen a normalization of technology in relation to, we're not bringing in new things all the time now. We found what works. Apps and technology platforms have developed, they're easier to use. And we're kind of happy at this spot now with what we've got. Is it enhancing our meetings as opposed to keep looking for the new kid on the block? Things like in the slightly larger meeting, telepresence tools are seen as, slightly hindering communication now. So there's a lot more unprompted interaction coming from the stage, so that's good to see. I've always hated using telepresent as well. I leave that to the politicians when we watch the news and and that sort of thing. And again, Joe just returns here and talks a little bit about the use of mobile apps, social media integrations. In fact, they're all coming together, and we have an annual conference. We have three, but we have one which is only 100 attendees, and we have a full suite of full app for that conference, even though it's only 100 people, and all of these points, networking, social media, polling, it all happens using, using the app. So it's not just reserved for the big events. Something for you to keep an eye on for the future maybe as well is this whole new environment where internet usage reports are being provided and handed over to clients at the end of their meeting to give them valuable tools. So think about the two conversations we often have with clients at the moment. First of all, when we ask the question as venues, what internet requirements do you have? Quite often they don't know what they need. They just are very unspecific. Well, we want to do some polling, in the morning, and we have a bit of, we have a bit of this, a bit of that. So can you deal with it? It's all very woolly. And then by equal measure, sometimes meeting planners ask, can you talk through, your Wi-Fi and the infrastructure you've got that will support our meeting? And I've heard often venue staff turn around with the response, well, we've never had any complaints. It works. It's fine. It's just in this day and age, it's not enough. And so we're seeing more venues have the ability now to provide dedicated Wi-Fi for an event. So it's a login for that conference. And by default, then what they can provide at the end of it is an internet usage report really easily and say, well, you peaked at 10:30 a.m. You had, you were hitting 512 megabytes per second, and sometimes when that's handed to meter planners, they turn around and say, well, that's great. That helps me next year. But by equal measure, they can turn around and say, actually, I've been ordering too much internet when I've had to buy it at venues. So we've seen a lot more, a lot more in that regard. Virtual streaming services are really interesting. It's kind of split at the moment for on the day requests. And so by this, I mean, not telling a venue weeks in advance that we're bringing, 6 people in from New York. They're going to join us. Can you provide the operation and technology to do it? This is on the day. Our speaker hasn't arrived. They're stuck at an airport. They're coming in via video conference call. Can you make it happen? And there is a lot more of that happening. The challenge for us as meeting properties, though, is that in meeting venues, is that we've got to deal with that on the day. Again, our friend from Sweden is back with another really clever insight, as he often is. But he's saying, he talks about our ability of venues, and I think this is a positive. It's called invisible flexibility. No one requests streaming support in advance, but everyone expects it to be available when somebody calls in sick. I'm always lending out webcams, fixing sound issues in Teams, Zoom, Google Daily. We don't get paid for it. Now, you might think that sounds like Sebastian's complaining a bit, and in a way, maybe he is, but the positive spin on that is if you're hyper flexible and it just happens in the background, don't make it so invisible. Talk about it as one of your traits, one of your positive pieces, one of your positive things. So a lot happening in regards to sustainability. And then just 1 or 2 slides here. I've got a lot more to share, but I'm conscious of our time as well today. But interestingly, when we asked meeting planners the importance of like the ethical side of what they're doing and the meetings that they're running, there's a lot of focus at the moment over accessibility. And I don't just mean that in relation to our less abled attendees, but also, being near public transport links, bicycle storage, car sharing, that sort of accessibility. So heightened awareness there. And again, ask the question of how you fit in with that. North America and Europe are more closely aligned now than they've ever been in terms of climate and social responsibilities, probably because the US has, has increased there. This is the one I kind of referred to earlier, where there is a concerning trend downwards, and that's in relation to the human-related credentials like DE&I, a decreased importance there. We've seen worldwide, and particularly in North America, where diversity, equity, and inclusion, have been really battered, and some organisations have stepped away from their stance there, and so it's maybe not surprising to see that, but worrying by equal measure as well. Venues now more than ever including a carbon footprint measurement. If you're not, I'd suggest you take a look at it because there are many tools out there and it's very easy to do it. And even, you know, some of the big hotel brands like Hilton in certain parts of the world, they'll offer a carbon footprint measurement for a meeting as part of their proposal, whether the client asks for it or not. So that, you know, that's really interesting to think about in that regard. And then low familiarity with increasing engagement with individuals with visual impairment or sensitivity to light or sound. So again, when we think about acoustics and lighting, it's worth thinking about that in regards to those. Our signage, the size of our text, the fonts that we're using on our digital signage. Again, if we can be sensitive to these facts, this aligns really well with what our clients are looking for and what they feel is important moving forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you've given me an hour of your time now, and I really appreciate it. Hopefully some of these trends, you know, resonate with you know, with what you're seeing or hearing from clients, but by equal measure, hopefully it's given you a few thoughts to take back and, you know, inquire and be inquisitive in your own venues. But there's one thing I can be sure of over the last 10 years with Meeting Room of the Future is that many of our clients around the world have told us they've taken this report, they've taken it into their strategic meetings with their leadership team, their owners, and it's helped them make informed decisions, or rather reduce the risk of the decisions they're making, guessing what's going to be wanted in the future. And that's a really important part of what we do. But the research is important. I'm glad that Stephen has given me the opportunity to share it with you, and thanks for, you know, inviting me along.
Thank you, Mark. I
Thank you,
appreciate that. Any questions from Mark at this stage? Because there's a lot of information there, Mark, and as you say, the report is available to download, and we will have the slides and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share all the slides with you guys because I've got your emails, and I'll also share a link to make it really super easy to go and view it online, and you can forward that to your team. And would just love to hear if there's anything there that you do in the future, use, you know, because of what you've read and you know the experience you get. It's always great to hear how you put it to good use.
Thank you. Any questions? No.
Yeah, sure. Definitely open to questions.
You might not get any, Mark, but that's okay because you know, it's quite there's a lot of information in there. So what we will do, if that's okay, we're going to just briefly pause to allow our good colleagues, my good colleague friends, you can feel free to get back to your desks and enjoy life. And thank you for coming in and taking that in. We've only got another bit to go through for our own course stuff, but thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bye, Clifton team. Nice to see you. See you in February.
Yeah. Remember that, he'll be over in Feb.
Yeah, watch out.
Mark is talking about, we do the one big conference, it's not big conference, but the one thing we do every year is in February, it's a study tour. And again, when you're a volunteer organization, building a study tour up and trying to get it out there into the marketplace can be tough. But we get on and do it. We typically visit some venues as part of that. So, and we have content. So a mix of content, venues, and a copper skillet competition, which we'll get into. So Mark, what is our next session? It's kind of a bit of me, I think, talking, but
yeah,
would you backing me up?
I'm happy. Yeah, of course, I'd be very happy to. So, so Stephen and I are going to just tell you a little bit. We won't go into too much detail, but a little bit of some of the benefits of being part of this community and family. And of course, we hope that today's been inspiring with the last two sessions, and you can see the value of, you know, of coming together, even just together and meeting each other, but coming together around topics that, you know, that are interesting. But there is so much more about being part of an association like IACC, and particularly the Asia Pacific chapter. So we're gonna talk to you a little bit about that, and about, you know, just how you maybe can go away today and consider staying a part of this group, which we would love if it's possible.
And it's good. I mean, those stats are there. 1981. Cindy, the earlier lady from the California, talked about Bert. What was Bert's
Bert
surname?
Cabanas, yeah, a
Cabanas.
founding father for
And I
Benchmark.
Yeah, I had met Bert's son, which was Alex Cabanas, back when I got involved. Have I been around for 10 years with this? I've been just around.
It feels like 20, Stephen, in a very positive way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think you probably have. Clifton's have been, I would say, for a good 10 years.
And it's been great. It's been a great experience. Most particularly because of the networking connections with the global, because I'm on the global board as part of that. So you've got colleagues in the US and in Europe that you can, if you need to touch base with and query things. We typically try and meet twice a year, or at least once overseas, and then those who can come down to Sydney and Australia. So what we have here is the membership categories. And as you can see, the commercial venues is kind of where we would sit. But likewise, we've got corporate and private memberships, which is where, what would be an example, Mark, of a corporate private one?
Sure. So these are conference and meeting venues that exist for one client. So for instance, we have a Deloitte University in Paris, Toronto and Dallas. We have American Airlines Training Center. We have a Cap Gemini train. So these are facilities, and they're not just in those contexts. I know in Sydney, for instance, there's a wonderful JP Morgan meeting center in the city, but it's just for JP Morgan clients. So why is that important to you? I think if all of these brands that I'm mentioning are probably your customers as well. So if you work with JP Morgan and they run events with you, or you want to win business from them, knowing that they've got their own facilities at IACC certified is really valuable, because it means you're of the same standard. You equate the quality of the meeting experience as highly as they do. So those corporate ones are, a really interesting complementary part of our overall membership.
And Mark, just I jumped over the commercial venues because there are two elements to that which are which are newer. One is the one that we're talking today, experiential, but we also have Flex by ISPT, which is that sort of activity, co-working activity organizations that do have some venues as well. Isn't that, am I correct in that we've expanded into that space as well?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we want to bring together anyone who is really passionate about being the best in class in their class when hosting business events, and that's been driven by, and the whole reason why in the last 18 months we've grown into the experiential venues, your type of venues, is that we saw more and more of them coming to us saying, we really like what you guys are doing, hospitality, sales, operational excellence, trends, but we don't have that group existing in our experiential space. The associations don't exist. So we really have embraced that. And then as we did, we started to really realize that actually we complement each other and can learn from each other. So that's how that's evolved. And also our shared workspace and meeting facilities. And I know you've got some great ones in Sydney, certainly down in Barangaroo as an example. Some great examples of that, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And then just the other three categories are more for associate suppliers, would be the likes of Encore, is how I describe that one. Anyone who works into our industry, faculty, students make sense, and friends of IACC are, as that would describe, people who like to be associated with the organization.
Yeah, and on the associate supplier side, Stephen, I'll
Yes.
just add as well, it can also be like we get a lot of interest from our experiential venues that are joining us as well. What property management systems are you using? What software to manage, rooms, sales, catering? And because you're in such unique spaces, there are only certain software platforms that do a good job. So we're seeing we get a lot of inquiries directly to us about those, but then we also see a lot of discussion in the groups like your group today, talking to each other about your experience or your platform, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Furniture providers is the other big one. We want ergonomic chairs, but they've got to be stackable. They've got to be light. They've got to be flexible. Who is the out there that we should be talking to? And so it's the top 1% of venues, but also being matched with the top 1% of suppliers that really do get our space. Sorry,
Yep.
back to you, Stephen.
Well, no, I mean, I think you've got slide control, so you might move to our next slide. And there, yes, I mean, that ultimately is the sort of catch cry. We are representative of the top 1% of meeting and conference venues focused around the world. Meetings experiences provided by the host property. So, I mean, I was looking at your earlier slides, Mark, and I was thinking maybe we might have to get you a space to pitch at the study tour in February, because there's some really key pieces of information around operations and food and beverage and technology about why that matters now more and more for meetings and so forth. So that's what.
Be a pleasure as always to do anything that helps shine a light on what we're doing. And the main point here as well, you know, is that you don't just become a member of IACC because you're willing to sign up and pay your annual membership dues. There is a standard for experiential venues that you need to meet. And you know, I'm sure each one of you would meet those standards, but it's important because it's attached to that promise that we represent the top 1%, and the sense of pride that you get being IACC certified is like a badge of honor for you. You know, we are the best, and we can, you know, put our shoulders out and say, yeah, that's great. We are the best. We care about being the best, and we want to stay the best. So our standards are brilliant. Really just underpin that quality. And then this is probably my chance, more so than Stephen, to chat about our growth, because a lot of our growth worldwide has come, you know, in other parts of the world. And this is exciting. We're here today doing the first one for Australia, but it's not the first gig. But I, for instance, 3 weeks ago was in Washington, DC. We had 45 experiential venue leaders from across Washington, DC, from the Ronald Reagan International Conference Center to the International Spy Museum, to the National Aquarium, to the, you know, and last year in Chicago, we did exactly the same. Botanical gardens, the Shed Aquarium. We have built a nice collection that is growing very quickly, you know, of our experiential venues. Up there, you can see the Queen Mary in Long Beach, which is an awesome facility in California. Zoo in Copenhagen, the Franklin Museum in Philadelphia, and the one right in the middle, which gives no clues away, is Mercedes-Benz World in the United Kingdom. So, you know, it's you can visit our experiential venues page on the website in the Join IACC section and see these listed. It's an exciting, rapid growth in just, you know, recent years. We've even got a prison, Stephen, as well. If you're coming to Stockholm in October, I'll introduce you to it.
A prison, excellent, good to hear. And yeah, and that was Chicago. There was it DC.
That was our one last July that we did at the Whirlpool. You know, and yeah, and so today's a good example. What would be truly great though is if your next meeting in Sydney was at one of your experiential venues. Not to say that Clifton's is an incredible host, but actually you'll learn a lot from discovering each other's venues and touring and hearing about all the challenges and all the good things. And you know, and that we got that last 2 weeks ago in DC. We're at a beautiful historic property called the Strathmore, and it's actually a theatre. It's incredible theatre they've got as well there. But all the venue operators that came hadn't been there before, and they hadn't met each other. And so this is your chance to open your doors to each other and build your awareness of each other, which is always a great knowledge gaining experience.
Even when we're under-resourced and have no bandwidth, we all understand. We're all got that problem in life. Yes.
My words coming back to haunt me.
What's this one? Yes.
We've got a new website coming as well. So whatever you look at today, in about 3 weeks' time, will look completely different. But what I'm really excited about is that whilst we're not a lead generating organization in the sense of you don't join us to get business leads, it's hopefully today you've heard enough to realize it's about professional development, training, creativity, innovation, building professional networks. But we do offer, and part of what we do is sales and marketing related, not just on how we help you sell your properties better, but how we help connect you with the world. And we are going to be launching what I understand is the first association to launch a AI generated business event venue directory tool. So 3 weeks time, this
Pretty
will be
cool.
live. So it is cool. I've been testing it and trying to break it, and haven't managed to yet. But yeah, I mean, the example you're seeing there, I'm looking for an experiential venue in Sydney to accommodate a sales team of 25 to 30 from 3 till 7 o'clock. If you're in there, you will come up. So
You
we're
know
really
what-
excited with that.
You know what's
And, yeah,
interesting?
watch this.
Interesting about that, Mark, is that the term experiential venue is becoming mainstream as well, and people are actually understanding what it means.
Yeah, I think so. I think unique is the other one that
Unique,
I
yes,
think,
yeah.
unique, experiential. But I think I think unique, probably still tips it a bit, but we think experiential. We're probably coining the phrase more than others. But yeah, each venue, if you join IAC, you'll have your own web page, your own directory listing. I'm just showing you the very top of the new website here. Underneath all of that is a bit about your meeting space, your food and beverage, all your, in summary, your unique propositions. And you will be able to add video and virtual site inspections as well to that and manage it yourself. So it is a window to the world of meeting planners. The next, I think, as well, before I hand back to Stephen, is about how you use your IAC certification online. And this one, it's a hotel example here in North America, uses the fact they become IAC certified as a reinforcement to their dedication to deliver service beyond many hotels. So it's their point of difference. And so there are different ways our members use it, and we've got lots of examples to give to you as new members, but it helps you just do more than just say, or just put the IAC logo on your website and think that's enough. It explains why being part of this community is important to you and what that means to the experience that our members will get. Back to you, Stephen.
Well, I mean, this particular one this is another part of Mark's global traveling show, if you like, because Mark typically will attend you're all familiar with IMEX, I guess. In some ways, it's a pretty big phenomenon in both Europe and in Frankfurt. So Mark and IAC itself will take a stand and will then offer that stand for members who can then have a small chunk, if you like, because it's a very expensive thing to invest in. It might not be particularly important for us to be over in Frankfurt selling the Australian Museum or Flex by ISD, but it's another part of the benefits of being a member in that sense. And where is the next one? October the 7th to the 9th in Las Vegas, Mark. You're back.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. I mean, Destination Sydney will be there as well. And so Australia will be represented. And we're there just because we're working with meeting planners that are booking meetings all around the world. So we'll not just, we won't just be there in the case of having a stand like you see here, but I'll be delivering, for instance, the meeting room of the future that we've just looked at. I'm delivering that to groups of hundreds of meeting planners over the 3 days. So, we will be representing all of our members worldwide at these major trade shows. And you've even got your own in Melbourne, right? That happens each February, Stephen, that you've been involved with IAC before.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name. AIM, yes, AIME, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Oh, this is us. So just letting you know that on the 16th and 17th of Feb, we will be hosting a 2-day study tour, which has I've got the details, but I just want to finalize the speakers and so on. We've gone with the whole idea of gathering matters and the whole point about bringing meetings back to the purpose of having the meetings and having the events. It's more about that connection, human element. So we've got about 6 to 7 content pieces, that being subject matter experts chatting about subjects relating to that topic and theme. And then we'll have, as I said, we'll visit at least 3 or 4 venues close by within Sydney CBD to allow people to get that experience, and we'll have the content in those venues. So it's a nice little way of just getting around the city. We have a
And
conference.
am I right in thinking, Stephen, one of your hopes after today is that one of these wonderful people in the room might be willing to open one of their experiential venues up to your group to have a look at some point during that?
Yeah, it's never good to ask anything on the first date, Mark. That's how the principle is. There's a certain degree of there's a lot of bits and pieces to be fixed in terms of logistics from getting to point A to point B. So
Sure.
we're working all those things out as well. But I will be sharing with you more of the content so you can get a bit of a feel for what we're talking about. We're a small chapter, so we don't get hundreds of people at any conference by any stretch. If we got to 2025, we'd be very excited by that as we grow in a marketplace. But we do have international guests. Mark comes over from the UK, the president of IACC, the global president that is, comes over from the US. And then there's a number of different delegates that come from Europe and the US as well.
Yeah.
As
probably the most cost-effective 2-day training course that you could invest in next year is the best way to put it, because it's education packed over 2 days, and Stephen and the chapter do their very best to keep prices to the least for our members and call upon all their great relationships with the venues and and speakers to do that. So yeah, it's always a standout event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I know that a few of you have been up since 5 o'clock. I've gathered that. And so cocktail hour is definitely on your agenda. So whistling through a few of these. Current jobs, you can post your jobs cost-free as an IACC member, on our website. The webinars Cindy talked about, just to point out that all the webinars we run are cost-free for members. They're 1 hour. So you get, like you saw from Cindy, you get one of those for 1 hour most months. And you can dial in all your sales team, cost you nothing more than your annual dues. We have a Copper Skillet Chef's Cook-Off, which is an incredible event. If you can come in February, you'll see the Australian, Asian, Pacific chefs cooking off in Sydney at the conference, and competed to go on to the tournament, where they then compete in the global final in the US. And they're all expenses paid. The finalists go on to do that. So great culinary showcase, but also great development for chefs.
Just on that one, that's just Mark, that Copper Skillet.
Sure.
It is like that TV show concept, and we typically hosted up on that floor where we were so we take it all, clear out the stuff, put this stuff in the room, and we have the chef stations and whatnot. And hopefully this year we're going to have more than 2. We're going to have maybe 3 or 4 chefs competing. So you'll be all invited to that because you've attended here, so you'll be able to get on to that anyways. Because we Clifton's put that out to our own clients because we see it as a valuable sort of relationship building piece. Sorry, back to you, Mark, in the studio.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, if social responsibility is your thing, do go and take a look at our Better Tomorrow initiative. It is all about people, community, and environment. But things like I mentioned to you about having a checklist about all the things you do that are great related to social impact. There is a components of a social checklist. You can download it. It's a Word document. If you again, take nothing else away from today, just download that and share it with your green team member to say, could somebody just have a look and see which of all these things that we do? It's great to see what you do, gathering it, but it's also good to see what you could be doing if you're looking to move forward. The IACC Green Star certification is our credential within our credential. So it's cost-free for you to go through that. You can either be platinum, gold, or silver as a venue, and add that to your other green star or green credentials, sustainability credentials as well. It's no longer good enough to have just one. We'll skip over Meeting Room of the Future. We'll skip over that one. We've done the global alliances. You see, I can tell we're all getting thirsty. But Meeting Professionals International, we talked about them a couple of times. We are the only venue finder on their global website, and it is the largest group of meeting buyers globally, and tends to be a lot of global meeting buyers, i.e. not just booking domestically. So that's a really important part of what we do. And then finally, we talked about it a little bit in terms of leadership and development, and our global staff exchange. I think it's one of the most unique features of IAC. So let's say you had a rising star in your organization, or somebody who just had been with you for 3-4 years, wanted to experience working in another venue. Their only choice normally is to leave you and go and work for another venue. We have a global staff exchange where we connect interested staff members with another IAC venue. Doesn't matter where in the world it is. So if somebody says, I want to go to Sweden for 3 weeks and work on, in the kitchen of, or in the conference department or marketing department to gain an understanding, we connect them with you, your general management team, and the general manager of the other property, and they go and they're looked after and they're hosted, and taken under their wing. So really great initiative. But on that, I'm going to close out with 1 minute 3 seconds to go, according to my clock. Just to say that if today's piqued your interest, that's great. And just the fact you're aware of IAC is great too, and the work that's happening. So later down the line, you might come back. But if you were interested in being a part of this community, of course, the question is, well, how much? It's a non-profit association. It's annual dues membership, January to December. It's 1,600 Australian dollars a year for the venue to become IAC certified, and then all staff members are considered members. It doesn't matter how many you have or how many you want to get involved. There is a commitment in return for you giving your time today, which we appreciate you doing, which is if you join now, i.e. in September, October, whenever you decide, Stephen and the chapter are going to give you the longest runway in transition in history, i.e. there'll be no cost to be a part of IAC through to the end of this year. So all you would need to be thinking of is having the budget for next year. And again, we would work with you on that. So if you join this year, there'll be no financial commitment. You can experience, taste, get embedded within IAC, start to get ready, and then hit the floor running in January. And of course, there's a great conference coming to your city in February, which we'd love you to be a part of as well.
Try before you buy, apparently. Yes.
Try before you buy. I've heard, you like that approach. So, hopefully, it's giving you a flavour for IAC. But Stephen, I'll hand back to you now, and thank you.
Mark, thank you very much for taking the time and getting up at a nice hour this morning. And you've got a full day ahead of you, which is fantastic because we don't. But I do appreciate you taking the time to spend the whole afternoon with us. You could easily come in and out.
I loved it. Yeah,
we really appreciate it. But we won't make you sit there and watch us potentially have a drink here. So we'll wave you goodbye and thank you.
That would be torture, although it does feel like cocktail hour for me too now, which might raise a few eyebrows with the people around me. But great to meet you all. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in February. Take care.
Thanks, Mark. Take care. Cheers. Bye.